we haven't had much time to talk about this new Kamala Harris book that just came out because there's been so much other news. It's been endless. We have just a nuclear war now on free speech being done by the Trump regime. We have wars that are popping off in Venezuela because Trump is doing another illegal and offensive war for oil. And just the destruction of everything that's good and just in this country, war on checks and balances and the Constitution. So we've just been so busy. But I've had my eye every now and then on these Kamala stories that have popped up because I guess her book came out. And, one of the things that we learned the other day is that apparently Joe Biden called Kamala like right before one of her Trump debates and hit her with like your brother tells me that you've been bad-mouthing at me or something like that. And so she spills the tea about how, Joe was a little bit petty and vindictive. And, we've heard the stories before about how, she gave a good speech and the Biden people didn't want the speech to sort of outshine him. And so they were not happy that she delivered a speech and was getting, accolades for it. So we already knew stuff like that, which had been coming out slowly but surely. But now I got to share this one with you because this is crazy. So this guy says Kamala Harris revealing more than she probably intended as she details her internal freakout as well as her subsequent admonition of staffers over what appears to be softball interviews. Okay. All right. Well, let's see what she says. So this is in her book. Ready? On Kelsey's carefully constructed schedule, it showed I would have a minute to myself to make some calls and read through important briefing papers before going on stage right after Grammy winner Cardi B. But Kirsten informed me that JOD had scheduled a last-minute interview with Dr. Mike, a podcaster. Quote, "Don't worry," Kirsten said. "Won't take long. It's just a brief thing on the RFK appointment. The campaign in Wilmington tended to choose my interviewers on various subjects by asking who has the biggest audience, the widest reach. But it was up to my team, who knew I insisted on being well prepped, to inquire into the style of the show, the nature of the interviews the host did, the areas of likely questioning. Then they'd give me a briefing sheet so I could knock it out of the park. But that didn't happen this time. They ushered me into a room where the Zoom was set up on a laptop. Dr. Mike was all ready to go. He launched into his introduction. Welcome to the Checkup Podcast, where today I have the pleasure of speaking to Vice President Kamala Harris. I was curious to know her plans surrounding healthcare costs, anti-science rhetoric, barriers to primary care, women's health, and the risks children face while eating overly processed foods for lunch. What the fuck? This is clearly not a brief thing on RFK. Dr. Mike was deeply knowledgeable, warmed up on all these issues, and raring to go, as I would have been had I not just been ambushed by an unscheduled in-depth interview with no notice at the end of a 19-hour day. I slid a scribbled note across the table. Where's my briefing? The staff looked at each other. They had nothing. When Dr. Mike asked, are you getting your 7 to 9 hours of sleep these days? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At the end of the interview, I sent the junior staffers out, leaving just Kirsten, Brian, Ike, and Sheila. What the fuck was that? I said, my voice reaching a crescendo. Brian, trying to channel JOD's Jod's thinking, launched into a detailed explanation about the rationale behind doing the podcast. I raised my hand and stopped him mid-sentence. Brian, I said through gritted teeth, that was a rhetorical question. Unbeknownst to me, for the next few days, anytime any of those team members asked each other anything at all, that was a rhetorical question would be the lighthearted response. Cardi B was delivering her speech by then. When a technical glitch caused her teleprompter to fail, she bravely called for her cell phone so she could read the heartfelt speech she'd written. I took my time writing this speech, so I'm going to make it... Anyway, it goes on, talking about Cardi B. But what Kamala's saying there is, she flipped out at her staff because she had to do a podcast and she had to talk off the cuff extemporaneously about various issues in regards to health. And she was furious at her staff for not prepping her for such an interview. Look, man, I don't... why be a politician then? Why... if you're not good... This is the exact sort of shit that a politician would light up for. A real natural politician. You're telling me I get to do an interview, and the person's got a big audience, and they start throwing questions at me that, I wasn't prepared for, or I didn't, have anything written out beforehand. This is where they shine. This is where they go, oh, hell yeah, I'll turn on the charm, do a little bullshit in here and there, dig into, say what my philosophy on the shit is, and keep it moving. This is classic, standard politician stuff. And I got to be honest, the fact that this threw her off and made her blow up at her staff, I'm sorry, man, that's just an indication that she wasn't ready for this moment. She wasn't ready for this moment. Like, if you're running for president and if you want to be president, bro, you got to be ready for them to throw everything but the kitchen sink at your ass. And if this made you flip out, if this made you pissed at your staffers, if an interview, probably a friendly interview with Dr. Mike made you feel like, oh, how could you put me in such position? Man, like, how would you deal with world leaders and shit? Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, I'd much rather have Kamala than Trump. No doubt about that. But it just speaks to the fact that when Biden was exited stage left and she became the heir apparent, it probably would have been a better idea to have something at the DNC, right? Have an open convention where you pick. And by the way, Obama wanted an open convention. Nancy Pelosi wanted an open convention. And it only became Kamala. I don't know how many of you know this. It only became Kamala because Biden on the way out the door wanted to give a massive middle finger to Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, who he felt they were forcing him out. And so he's like, okay, well, fuck you. On the way out, I'm going to say, Kamala's the one. And then Kamala became the heir apparent to the throne. But a lot of the big-name Democrats wanted to have an open convention to get a candidate who can deal with such scrutiny, who can deal with stuff like this, who can have a long-form conversation and talk off the cuff. And it just goes to show you how ill-prepared Democrats are for the era of not only social media, but the era of new media and alternative media and YouTube and podcasts, that now those have more sway than the traditional news channels. And you need to be the type of person who can thrive in the environment of the online world. Like, it's no longer, hey, you got to do a 5-minute hit or a 10-minute hit for some fucking, CNBC thing or some CBS thing. It's not like that anymore. Nobody watches that shit. The fucking 80-year-olds watch that shit, if anybody's watching it at all. Now it's, you got to do this podcast, or you got to do that podcast, or you got to do this YouTube show or that YouTube show. And, like, the number one quality that is most important in those environments is, can you shoot the shit? Can you talk like a normal person? And can you come across as authentic? Can you actually be genuinely authentic? It's okay if you're asked a question and you don't have a long-form policy thing written out. You can still, do your thing. You can still talk. You could still, lay out what your perspective is. You could still allude to, this is the sort of general policy I prefer. You can still do that. And it just struck me as, I can relate in the sense that she seems very, like, introverted in a sense, like, I gotta go talk to these people, like, and it's like, oh, everybody's entitled. If you feel like that, you're entitled to that, but then don't try to fucking be president. Don't try to be a politician. Don't try to, when the job description is, I gotta be in front of people all the time, you gotta be somebody who likes that, right? It can't be, and I am an introvert, so I get it, but, like, you gotta be able to roll with the punches on shit like this, so I might actually pick up that book and read it, because we're getting a lot of, everything that comes out from that book is very tea spilling, if I don't say so myself. From the stuff we learned about Joe Biden to how funny enough, you ready for this? Who is the one person who comes out of this book looking totally unscathed? AOC. Apparently Kamala actually liked AOC quite a bit and thought she was very genuine and very authentic and very nice. Whereas, Biden, she sort of threw under the bus a little bit. Here she throwing her own staffers under the bus a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's just, this is not the role for you. If you wanted to not have to be able to roll with the punches in an interview setting, I'm sorry, politician is really not the role for you. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You want to.